Have you ever looked at a young person and wondered why so many of them seem exhausted, anxious, and lost? Not physically tired, but emotionally tired. Tired of trying to keep up. Tired of proving themselves. Tired of carrying expectations that seem heavier every year. As someone who has lived for nearly a century, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this question, and the older I become, the more uncomfortable the answer feels. Because perhaps the problem isn't the youth. Perhaps the problem is us. Perhaps the generations that came before them. Perhaps we created a world that became harder to live in while convincing ourselves we were making it better. These are the unspoken words of the last generation. The words many older people think about but rarely say aloud. And if you're young, I hope you'll listen carefully. Because this message is for you. When I was a child, life was far from perfect. We faced hardships that young people today may never experience. Money was scarce. Opportunities were limited. Life demanded sacrifice. But there was something we had that seems increasingly rare today. We had each other. Families gathered around dinner tables. Neighbors knew one another by name. Children played outside until sunset. Conversations happened face to face. When someone suffered, people noticed. When someone struggled, help often arrived without being asked. We weren't richer. We weren't more educated. We certainly weren't more advanced, but we were connected. And that connection protected us in ways we didn't fully appreciate. Then the world began changing. Slowly at first. Then faster than anyone imagined. Technology transformed everything. Communication became instant. Information became unlimited. Entertainment became endless. Every year seemed to bring another breakthrough, and we celebrated every one of them. We believed progress would solve humanity's problems. In many ways, it did. People lived longer. Healthcare improved. Knowledge became accessible. The world became smaller. But something unexpected happened. The more connected we became digitally, the more disconnected we became emotionally. We gained followers but lost friendships. We gained convenience but lost presence. We gained speed but lost patience. And by the time we noticed what was happening, an entire generation was already growing up inside this new reality. Today, a young person wakes up and immediately enters a competition. Not because they choose to, because the world demands it. Before breakfast, they can see hundreds of people who appear more successful. More attractive, more talented. More wealthy. More accomplished. The comparison never stops, and comparison is exhausting. When I was young, we compared ourselves to a few people in our town. Today's youth compare themselves to millions. Every single day. Can you imagine carrying that weight? Can you imagine constantly feeling as though everyone else is moving ahead while you're falling behind? Many older people criticize young people for lacking confidence. But perhaps we should ask ourselves a different question. How confident would we have been if we had grown up under the same pressures? One of our greatest mistakes was teaching achievement without teaching contentment. We told young people to chase success. Work harder. Earn more. Climb higher. Be productive. Be exceptional. Stand out. Compete. Win. But we rarely taught them how to be satisfied, how to enjoy a quiet moment, how to appreciate enough. How to find peace without constant achievement. As a result, many young people feel trapped inside a race with no finish line. Every goal reached creates another goal. Every success creates another expectation. Nothing ever feels enough. And that is not entirely their fault. We helped create that system. A few years ago, my grandson sat across from me at the kitchen table. He was 24 years old. Bright. Hardworking. Kind. The type of young man any family would be proud of. Yet he looked defeated. I asked him what was troubling him. He stared into his coffee and said something I'll never forget. "Grandpa, I feel like I'm running out of time." Running out of time. At 24, I was stunned. At his age, life should have felt endless. Possibilities should have felt exciting. Instead, he felt panicked. Because somewhere along the way, society convinced young people that they must have everything figured out before they are even fully grown. Career. Money. Relationships. Purpose. Success. Identity. All immediately. And if they don't have it yet, They feel like failures. What a terrible burden to place on young shoulders. Another mistake we made was confusing information with wisdom. Young people today have access to more information than any generation in history. Answers are available within seconds. Knowledge is everywhere. Yet wisdom remains rare, because wisdom doesn't come from information. Wisdom comes from experience. Reflection. Mistakes. Patience. Human connection. And while technology provided information, it couldn't provide meaning. That is why so many young people know more than we ever did, yet still feel uncertain about life itself. Then there is loneliness. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of all. People often imagine loneliness as being physically alone, but that isn't always true. Some of the loneliest people are surrounded by others. Many young people today spend hours communicating online, yet struggle to find someone they can truly talk to, someone who listens without judgment, someone who understands, someone who cares. As communities weakened and families became busier, loneliness quietly expanded. Not overnight. Year by year, conversation by conversation, relationship by relationship. Until millions of people began feeling isolated despite living in the most connected era in history. And we failed to recognize the danger soon enough. If I could tell young people one thing, it would be this: you are not behind. I know society tells you otherwise. I know social media tells you otherwise. I know comparison tells you otherwise, but it isn't true. Life is not a race. There is no universal timeline. Some people find success at 20-5. Others at 50-5. Some find love early, others later. Some discover their purpose quickly. Others spend decades searching, and that's okay. The journey is different for everyone. Do not allow someone else's timeline to become your prison. As I near the end of my life, I often think about what truly mattered, not the promotions, not the money, not the possessions. Not the status. The things that mattered most were surprisingly simple. The people I loved, the friendships I kept, the kindness I received, the moments I shared, the laughter, the conversations, the memories. Those are the treasures that remain when everything else fades away. And I wish we had taught this lesson more clearly. Because too many young people are sacrificing their happiness today for rewards they hope will make them happy tomorrow. Sometimes tomorrow never comes. Despite everything, I remain hopeful. In fact, I believe today's youth possess something extraordinary. They are more aware of mental health. More willing to challenge unhealthy traditions, more open to discussing emotions, more interested in purpose than status. Many of them are trying to create a healthier world than the one they inherited, and that gives me hope. Because every generation has the opportunity to correct the mistakes of the one before it. That is how humanity moves forward. Not through perfection. But through learning. To every young person listening, I want you to understand something important. The generations before you made mistakes, many mistakes. Some of them unintentionally became your burdens. For that, we are sorry. We are sorry for creating pressures we didn't fully understand. We are sorry for valuing achievement over well-being. We are sorry for allowing connection to weaken. We are sorry for measuring worth through success instead of character. But we also believe in you. We believe you can do better than we did. We believe you can build stronger communities, healthier relationships, more compassionate workplaces, more meaningful lives. We believe you can create a future where success and happiness are not enemies, where ambition and balance can exist together, where technology serves humanity rather than replacing it. And if these are truly the unspoken words of the last generation, then let them end with this. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to impress everyone. You do not need to win every race. You do not need to meet every expectation. You only need to become the person you were meant to be, a person who loves deeply, acts kindly, lives honestly, and remembers that life is measured not by what we accumulate, but by what we contribute. One day, many years from now, your generation will look back and ask the same question we ask today. What did we leave behind? My hope is that your answer will be different from ours. My hope is that you leave behind a world with more understanding, more compassion, and more human connection. Because in the end, that is what matters most. And perhaps that is the lesson we should have shared much sooner.